Yeah. It's hard to believe that it's late January already. It just feels like with everything that's been going on, I never really had a chance to celebrate any kind of Christmas. So, wintertime rebel it is. I gotta do some stuff to take my mind off of all the nonsense that's been going on. So let's get to some more stuff that's been sitting on the to-do list for way too long.
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
People can accuse me of making a clickbait-style title if they want, but in the context of when this was recorded, Linus Tech Tips just got a bunch of people thinking he was going to retire. So it could be worse. Anyways, we're looking at the Silver Bullet, which represents basically a certain time period in history. It's the first computer I ever built, does not contain its original hardware, no thanks to capacitor plague, and has a shiny window. We could probably get a better look at the components inside if we took the darn cover off. This machine currently houses a lot of spare parts and cable spaghetti alongside my 2007 system from the Core 2 era. I upgraded it from Core 2 Duo to Core 2 Quad, got it running for a little while, but the cooling was pretty bad. And then, of course, it redeveloped the problem that it's been having where this motherboard will turn itself on and off from time to time after you leave it unplugged for a while. So this whole machine is pretty much not in working order, and I really think I want to get rid of that obnoxious Intel stock cooler with the Core 2 Quad to actually get some better thermals in this thing and maybe actually be able to use the overclocking features on the motherboard. So there's a lot of stuff that I need to do with this machine, and a lot of it has to do with what it is supposed to represent. The Silver Bullet is the first computer that I ever built, and it basically represents college for me. It represents the heydays of the original screensavers with that twangy 70s inspired theme, which I recently posted over on Twitter, which I now realize is a test to see whether someone's a millennial or Gen Z. Because if you remember the theme at all and you weren't a little kid when you first saw it on television, you're definitely a millennial. Because that early 2000s twangy screensavers theme, before it was replaced in 2003, is something that you would, if you were born in, say, 1996 or something, you'd be a little kid when you saw the show, if you'd ever seen it. So, if you were raised on, watching Leo Laporte and Patrick Norton when you were in preschool, you'll recognize it as a Gen Z. Otherwise, it is absolutely a millennial thing. So one of the changes that I've decided to make going into the 2020s, and I've been reminded of this because of some stuff that I've observed very recently. One of the things that stinks about getting old is, or one of the things you have to get used to when getting old, is the issue of time flies, and oftentimes things change around you very easily without you even noticing that they've changed. And when I think about computers in the Silver Bullet's heyday, and what it meant to use a computer back then, during the prime of Windows XP, single-core processing, and the last time AMD was able to compete with Intel very strongly, before today's Ryzen era, of course. When I think of all that, I think, yeah, things were different back then, and, there's things like capacitor plague and thermal issues with computers leading to the modification of the ATX standard, and these lights pop when you turn them off for some reason. I have no idea why. LEDs. But anyways, when I think of all that, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that the bad old days are gone, but yeah, the world has changed since the Silver Bullet's prime. So one of the changes, if that light will stop popping, that I would like to make going into the 2020s is to turn the Silver Bullet into a historical system that is no longer something where I do like what I do at Tuxedo and my other systems, see how long old hardware configurations remain relevant. What I want to do is I want this to be the new home of my 2005 system, which runs an Athlon 64-4000, is very squarely Windows XP, is very squarely single-core, and have this be essentially a historical experience. So when I fire this computer up, for any reason, it'll represent where it all began for me, and what things were like back in those days. So we're going to take just about everything out of here, because nearly everything has to go. And it'd be good to get some oil on some of this metal to kind of protect against oxidation and stuff like that. Machine oil, because of the whole oil and water not mixing thing. This case is primarily aluminum, but it'd be nice to have some kind of coating on some of the stuff that's prone to rust. So let's get to work on all this, shall we? And here's the current resting place of my 2005 system, which everything is going to come out of this computer as well. This is not an Antec Landboy, it's actually an Antec Sonata case. Circa the mid-2000s, or actually the early 2000s, about 2004, 2005-ish, when my dad basically needed a new computer, and I had my flaked-out HP and bits and pieces of his flaked-out Dell, aka the original Dellosaurus, and we combined everything together into a computer running Windows XP for him to use. It eventually became his backup system when he went out and bought an E-machine a year or two later. But everything's still in here, including a rather solid AMD motherboard from the last time that AMD posed any significant competition to Intel. This is running it actually has the stock cooler and everything. It's running an Athlon 64 4000. The numbering back then was to essentially serve as marketing as to what kind of performance the AMD CPUs of the day were supposed to be an equivalent to. So the 4000 was supposed to be an equivalent to a 4 gigahertz Pentium 4 or whatever. I think it was Pentium 4. This is the pre-Intel Core days, so if Pentium 4 could do 4 gigahertz, this 64-bit CPU could do all that stuff. So it was a very different world with computers back then, even though AMD was giving some decent competition to Intel at the time. The thing with this case specifically, though, and why I want to put the Core 2 Quad in here, is that it has 120mm fans. Matter of fact, this case ran so quiet compared to the Silver Bullets case with its 80mm fans and being aluminum instead of steel. People are racing out there because it was warmer today. It's not... It's something besides 5 degrees out and everybody's hot rodding. That's New England for you. Anyways, I used to observe that when this thing had a hard drive going with the cover closed, it sounded like a coffee percolator because the acoustics were pretty nice. It also has a drive cage that slides out sideways with rubber grommets to keep the noise down. There were a lot of neat features in this case, but the 120mm fans was the big one. That's what made this a lot quieter. And so I figure even if I don't have the space that I have in the Silver Bullets case, putting the Core 2 Quad in here and eventually solving its cooling problems would probably be a good move to make, assuming the power supply isn't getting ready to blow up, either this one or the PC power and cooling that I'm taking out of the Silver Bullet. So now we've just got a ton of pseudo-wrenching type stuff to do to transfer everything between all these systems. So let's get to it. Okay, the first screw is out, so that's progress. Learned a few things over the years, like put a towel under the computer so it doesn't get all scratched up and stuff like that. So, some people have said they wanted this case, and I guess you can tell from the cable spaghetti that there is absolutely no cable management whatsoever. You have to add your own, with cable ties and tie-down points if you want to have any in here, because it's just a box, basically. Once upon a time, that would be the reason why there was side vents and stuff, so stuff could go in and out, and your airflow wouldn't matter from the front all the way up through the back and stuff like that. This is old school ATX as well, where the power supply was supposed to help exhaust the heat if you didn't have any fans, but running all that hot air over where your power comes from, not so sure about that. Some people have mentioned that they'd like to have a case like this, but I don't think you would. You can't really find silver anymore unless you're talking Leon Lee and aluminum cases and things like that. So, alright, quit being lazy here. I took out a single screw. Whoop-de-doo. Let's take everything else out of the machine. And just like that, we have flipped the motherboard, but we are down a power supply. I am not hooking this back up. It's getting recycled. So this is an Antec True Power something or another, but here's the problem. Notice the date. 2004. That's right in the middle of capacitor plague, the capacitor plague era, and it was actually capacitor plague that took down the Silver Bullet. If we shine this just right with a bright light underneath, and we get it to focus not on the grills, but on that capacitor that's underneath. Come on, camera. Yeah. Well, you can see the spot in the middle. That's orange crap. That cap is bulging. That is orange crap, and I think I can see another cap that has issues too. I see some more orange crap down there. Capacitor plague. This power supply is no good. It's getting recycled. It had a good run, but I think this actually was the second power supply that I had in the original Silver Bullet, when the original one that came with the case couldn't supply enough power. But it had a good run. Unfortunately, crappy capacitors ruin good pieces of equipment. Well, we'll revisit this later on. Fortunately, the PC power and cooling silencer tank is from several years later. So, we'll just put that back in here and see how long that one continues going. If all this blows up, oh well, it had a good run. This is from 2005, so it's a 15-year-old motherboard. Heck, for all I know, this battery might be dead, and that's battery number 2 for this board. So this will be the first board I ever had that needed a third CMOS battery over the course of its run. This, of course, had one of those infamous KTS batteries that went dead a long time ago. I put in this finger? Yeah. I put in that Energizer however long ago it was. Heck, that could be dead by now for all I know, too. So yeah, out of commission. It had a good run. Circa 2004, why not? Okay, most of the spaghetti mess has been transferred. So we have the fan controller completely being bypassed and the fans just being all plugged into the motherboard at its various parts. Hopefully that's right and nothing's upside down. Went with the worst graphics card that I have that I think still works. A R5 670. Very, very old. Probably so old it might even have Windows XP drivers still out there. The video capture card that I used to use in the Windows XP days, the WinFast PVR TV2000 XP, I don't think I still have the dongle to record a console to this, but just for old time's sake, and an XFi card, which is my last functional sound blaster from that era. So, let's push the button and see if anything blows up, or whatever. In 3, 2, 1... Starts right up! You can depend on your AMD! See here. That's lit up. Anything gonna show up on the screen? I think it has a speaker, so it can beep if something's not right. Listen to that loud stock cooler, though. It also has 3 gigs of RAM. I don't know if that RAM might be too dense for the motherboard, and it only takes 512 meg sticks. So, 3 gigs, of course, because Windows XP being a 32-bit operating system would get capped at around that amount. Okay, nothing's happening. Boo!
Epic fail.
With 2 gigs of RAM, PNY, 1 gig sticks. Might be too much for this board. Ah, the hum of 80mm fans running at full speed. It's a lot of airflow, too. Haven't felt that in a while. Anything? Do-de-do-de-do-de-do-de-do-do. Is that VGA or is that RAM? If I had analog speakers, I could hook them up and get what the code is. I got a feeling that these 1 gig sticks are too dense for this motherboard. Let's go down to 1 gig of RAM, 512 meg sticks. It's one heck of an arm cooler, though, when those fans are going full blast. And those are Vantex Stealths, so they're made to be quiet, as opposed to some of the louder fans of that era. That's 1 gig of RAM with 2 512 meg Crucial sticks, 2 out of the 3 that I used to have in this thing. I don't know where the 3rd stick went, but this capped out at 1.5 gigs of RAM. You could always find some 512 meg sticks to cap this at 2. Turn the power supply on, of course. And let's try this again. And probably move that Molex out of the way. There. Anything? Now testing the RAM. I think part of the problem is that I'm trying to run this off of the HDMI on this card. We get a post, and there we go. So we can't put more than 512 meg sticks in this thing. Where'd the 3rd one go? I think I was mixing and matching stuff. CMOS checksum error, defaults loaded. Yeah. This thing's ready for CMOS battery number 3. First we gotta get the RAM amount correct. That's why I couldn't find the 3rd stick of Crucial, because there never was a 3rd stick of Crucial. I actually tried some Kingston Value RAM at one point, and that was the third half a gig to bring it up to 1.5. Yay. 1.5 gigs. The original RAM has been restored. How does it fare? Still quite a wind tunnel coming out of the back. A whiny wind tunnel, of course, because this was an aluminum case. Come on. Boot! Boot! HiMem is testing extended memory. Done. There we go! We got it! Except we've got a default screen. It's probably going to flip over to the, hey, the thing stopped working. Yeah, there we are. What? 512 megs? Oh, wait. Installed memory, 1.5 gigs. So now we've got issues with, right, old RAM. Or RAM that has to be installed in matched pairs. Whatever. The two Crucials together with the Kingston in slot number 3. Let's see what happens. And look at everything spinning until something actually shows up on the screen. So I don't think this motherboard will actually control the speed of these fans, so I'm going to have to reroute them so the old fan controller can turn them down. Or not. Kingston Value RAM, baby. Whatever.
Epic fail.
512 megs, Kingston Value RAM all by itself. I ran Windows XP off of 512 megs of RAM once upon a time, and I can do it again if need be. Might have to get the alcohol, maybe clean off the contacts on there, or get the duster can. Maybe there might be a little fleck of dust that made it in there. I've certainly cleaned that out before. Make sure there's a good connection. Oh, cool. When it's just the Kingston Value RAM, it posts all by itself. Whatever. What's the total amount? 500 something? Yep. Half a gig works out of half a gig. Woo! So this might be why I saw that the the Crucial RAM was in spots 2 and 4, and there was nothing in 1 and 3. Maybe the Kingston Value RAM started there. What was I thinking back in 2005? Maybe we should get a 4th RAM stick to bring it up to 2 gigs. That's a good amount of RAM for a Windows XP machine, and it might be the max for the motherboard. Working on that dream Windows XP machine, baby. See what we get here. Just listen to that hum. We get a post! How much of the RAM passes the test when the battery goes dead and it errors out again? This is an Asus A8N Sly Premium. Ah, we've got our 1.5 gigs again. Now there's a 4th stick of RAM that I've gotten from another computer. This Infineon 256 megs one. Let's just toss that in there and see if that works, with the intent of getting a 512 gig stick to finish this off at 2 gigs, which should be a nice healthy amount for Windows XP. Okay, the 256 meg stick is in. The mystery stick. Will it take down the whole system? 1 3/4 gigs of RAM. That's different. I definitely should see if I can get a 512 stick of regular DDR from whatever corner of the e-tailing world it would come from these days. It's too bad I can't just put one of those 1 gig sticks in there. I think the 1 gig sticks are too dense. Uh-oh. Should have done something by now. Aw, do all 4 sticks have to be the same size for this to work? Do. Yeah, uh-huh. Nope, take out the mystery stick. Stick with what actually worked back in 2005.
Epic fail.
Keeping the dream alive. I don't want to give up on these 1 gig PNYs just yet. So, let's try booting up with just one of these. See if it posts, then boot up with the other one. See if it posts. Otherwise, yeah, the motherboard's a little too old, and these 1 gig DDRs might be for a 2006 or 2007 motherboard. Why do I do this stuff? Because I have nothing better to do? I don't know. Speaking of nothing better to do, the designers of this motherboard obviously had nothing better to do. Oh, postcode, there we go. And when they put this together, An extra power port for SLI way the heck over here. Wonder if it'll start if I don't plug that in, if I only have one graphics card that doesn't draw a lot of power. Let's try the other stick. Okay, PNY stick number 2. I still think this RAM is too new for this machine, so otherwise we'll just go back to the Kingston Value RAM and the 2 sticks of Crucial. Here we go again on stick number 2. I don't think this is going to work. A little bit of a compatibility thing. Even when RAM is like the same RAM type, sometimes it just doesn't play nice with the board. And I don't know if there even still is a BIOS update for a board this old. Oh, wait a minute! We have liftoff! So it's just one bad stick of PNY. Sweet! I'll go with 2.5 gigs of RAM. That's roughly, yeah! Sweet, those do work. At least the ones that aren't totally hosed. Okay, we'll put this in spot number 3, put the other sticks back, and have 2.5 gigs of RAM, which is roughly the memory limit if you have 3 anyways, I think. Or is it 3.5 or something? Anyways, cool, this thing takes 1 gig sticks. This puts new RAM on the board for this ultimate Windows XP machine. So this is Kingston Value RAM in spot number 1, a matched pair of Crucial 512s in 2 and 4, and the one PNY 1 gig that we know works in spot 3. 2.5 gigs of RAM, anyone? Watch it not work because of some compatibility issue with the different sized RAM sticks. What did I tell you? Well, this does leave a RAM upgrade as something that is possible for this dinosaur. A matched pair of PNYs in spots 1 and 3. And is the power supply on? We don't blow up the power supply from all this hard switching. Alright, what do we got? Always fun to wait in suspense like this. Nope, this is taking too long. Yep, there's our postcode. So no. Stick number 3 is the bogus one, so we'll ditch that one and keep the good one. All those years of cleaning off Nintendo cartridges have finally come in handy. I busted out the Q-tips and the 91% isopropyl alcohol, and I cleaned the contacts on the RAM and the RAM sockets. It wasn't as bad as the video game cartridges of yesteryear, but there was some gray stuff that came off. I also cleaned the contacts on this old graphics card as well, in case there was some oxidation or something like that that I couldn't see. And the results speak for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, my 2005 system powered by an Athlon 64 4000, and it's got this Radeon card. Of course, he's going to be running with, starting off anyways, with 2 gigs of DDR400. I forgot that the 1.5 gigs, some of which I brought over from the original Silver Bullet when it died of capacitor plague, was actually DDR333. So this thing is now running, because of that RAM that I found in my tinkering with computers over the years, this machine will now be running off of DDR400, and it'll be starting at 2 gigs, as opposed to 1.5 gigs of DDR333. Definitely the happiest disk boot failure that I've had in a long time. And this is where we're going to stop this project for now, put the lid back on this thing, and call it a morning. Because we're heading towards that wonderful time of the morning when non-night shift people start actually getting up. So this has been a fun project, and whoops, just reset it by mistake. Alright, we might have to check that later. Let's hard switch the power supply off, and I would say that the Silver Bullet, as basically a time capsule of what computing was like in college, to an extent. I mean, 2 gigs of RAM was pretty rich back in the day. This project is off to one heck of a start. We'll continue it later. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.